psychiatry at our College of Health Sciences at Makerere University. And a brief history about our psychiatrist here. She's that one motivated researcher that has done a number of researches in geriatric psychiatry and cognitive impairment of in HIV. And she has served a number of positions. If you try to Google a small thing about her, you will see that she has served very many positions in her career as a medical worker. But I'm wondering whether she was working, she had some political activities she was running while still in doing MBCHB. Because she did her MBCHB well at Makerere University, even her master's of psychiatry was here, but later she did her PhD at Karolinska Institute, where she did a doctor in philosophy. Let me not mistake it. That is psychiatry and cognition. Yes, I'm very sure she's with that whole package we need, because as medical school, we know that she has a lot of stressors, and she has actually done a lot of work in dealing with stress. Because if you see that she has given a number of talks under stress, and I believe she is that one person that we actually need. And we are very grateful that you're here, and I'm very grateful for everyone who organized this, starting from Professor Biachika, and I'm very grateful that you actually accepted to be part of the session. So I welcome you to give us your presentation.
Thank you very much, Amanya, for that very kind introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be speaking to you today about how you should navigate the academic environment at the medical school. My assumption is that there are people from all years, so I've tried to be as accommodative. And while some points may sound like they are for newcomers, they actually continue to be issues even as people continue through the medical school. So you've introduced me very well. I will not go back into that, but I wanted to start with this picture of my class of 93. I think this picture was taken in the 4th year. Can anyone identify who I am in this picture? Noeline, you first.
Oh, Prof. Oh my God. I don't know whether it was our cameras of those days, but I am trying to find out. I can't trace you. Okay, doctor, failed.
You have failed.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm in the back row.
I'm seeing
Doctor, can I guess?
Yes, someone guess.
Dr. back row, 4th from the left, wearing a black top, a little short with some black hair on the head.
Okay, that's me.
Oh,
so,
hey.
Okay. So once I was young, like you people as well. That was our class of 93, but this picture was taken when we were possibly in 4th year. We had gone for an outing with Father Kanyike. He's this gentleman here, if you can see my cursor. Father Kanyike is a Catholic priest who was a great mentor for us as well as generally Makerere University students. And we used to go out for outings with him. Does that happen to you guys anymore?
At the moment, yes, we have some small outings, but they're still not, I'm very sure, not as good as those ones, because I'm seeing a number of students and hours a bit limited.
Yeah.
To a small particular group.
Right. So one of the great things about navigating a medical school is having social interactions, not only with your fellow students, because in this group we had some flukers, the people who used to like the activities of our class so much that even though they didn't belong to our class, whenever we would organize outings, social outings, they would join us. So we had, I think, 2nd years fluking to be in an activity for 4th years. I don't know if you're that free with other people. As I present, you'll later on appreciate why it is important to give social interaction, why it is important to also, as you navigate the books, it is important to also be able to enjoy nature. At the back is a lake, that is Lake Victoria. I don't think you can see it very well, but it's good to hang out in a responsible manner, as you can see how we were all dressed, even though it was a beach outing. Okay, so one of the biggest challenge that people find as a problem when they come to medical school is to realize that they are no longer, the top of their class from wherever they may be. In medical school, many of the times you find that people come when they've been the 18-8s, no. At university, you'll be getting the 20 points, right? Okay. I didn't want before. I like because I can't see you guys, I like for us to be as interactive as possible so that I don't feel like I'm speaking to a wall. But much of the time people come when they've been top, because the medical school normally picks the cream from wherever people have been. When they get here, things are different. They are no longer top of a group, and now you belong to a pool of very other good students. And it's a bit of a challenge for a couple of students to realize that they are no longer on top. I will not be giving examples, but because I work in mental health, I get a couple of students coming in when they get that disillusion of, I'm no longer top of the class. And what we're going to go through now is to appreciate where you belong the moment you join medical school, so that you can have a smoother, path, even if you're already in your third year, because some of them, it doesn't happen the very time when they come in the first year, but maybe sometimes later on when people fail a course, when they've never failed a course ever in their life. And it can be very disheartening and very depressing for some of them. So I believe all of you know about the bell-shaped curve. Okay, some may not know, but the majority should. If Nuwamanya knows, do you?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, you know about the bell-shaped curve. So they are going to be that. Curve. Okay, can you explain what is on the screen?
Well, oh my. So it's a normal distribution curve which shows that there are always outliers on irrespective of what we're doing, and the biggest number of students or the biggest number of people are always in the middle there.
Right.
So, yes.
Right, you're correct, very correct. So the majority of the people will be in the middle, but of course there are going to be people who are laggards, and then of course there are people who are, like Superman. They're so far into the future. Even before you've caught on the idea, for them, they seem to have already, caught up with what is being taught or being done. For much of the time, you want to either be at the very end, like Superman, but it is okay to be in the yellow zone. It is not okay for you to be in the red zone. So if at all there are things you're doing that are pulling you back and are putting you in that red zone, you have to see how you pull yourself up. Okay, so the learning style in medical school is very different. For many of you, and because I'm also Ugandan and I've been through our secondary school system, much of the time you find that students are used to learning stuff, but which is usually crammed. When you arrive at the medical school, the volume of what you have to learn now even increases the more, and it becomes almost impossible for you to cram all that material. Furthermore, it is rather very complex, like studying the Krebs cycle, and you have to be able to explain exactly how the cell functions. the cell function is affected, if at all there is any challenges with the Krebs cycle. So it is complex and it is a lot, and yet you have to appreciate that the learning is going to be different. You may have to do more discussions with people in order for you to really understand those things, or you may have to read different books in order for you to get different approaches to the same kind of problem. The other thing is that there is a difference in the grading. Like you're all aware, you have progressive assessments, and then we have summative assessments, and then there's word work, and then there's practicals. So the grading system is usually not based on the 1 mark, and you have to see how you really perform well enough in all those different areas so that you end up with a good mark at the very end, which I think is very fair, because if you're a fair student in how you distribute your time and effort for each of the different ways of assessment, then you should be able to get the marks. If you're required to be on the ward and you are on the ward, if you're required to clerk and present your cases and you do that, you're going to get your marks. Sometimes I feel like it's so easy, though some people don't see it that way and wait for only the 1 exam, and they are hoping that it's the same as it used to be before, that they'll be able to pass this one final exam, and then they fail it. And yet they could have been salvaged either by word work or, some other presence within your different learning environments. The other thing with medical school is what you're learning an art. Well, it is a science, but it is also an art. The way you draw off blood or the way you tie a tourniquet on a patient to draw that blood, or the way you perform that biopsy on a patient, or the way you place the cuff to measure that person's blood pressure is an art. And when you study this, you're not only studying to pass the test, but you're actually learning a skill that you're going to be using for the rest of your life. So when you're learning skills, the issue of competing with other people kind of becomes minimal, because this is about you rather than about other people. If sessions are scheduled, for example, you're supposed to be on the ward, be there when you're supposed to be there, or even when you're not supposed to be there, for as long as you're not cutting any other activity. When you do things that way, it becomes easier for you to navigate, because you're never going to be caught off guard for not being where you're not, where you're supposed to be. Medical school is a full-time course, apart from the few short holidays that you may be given, which is usually maybe just about a week. Sometimes it gets to a month if we get back to the normal university calendar. We got lots of disruptions with COVID, and it became difficult for people to go away for extended periods of time. So I feel for you, the people who have studied since 2020. It's been very tough, but somehow people still need to have navigated this. So the other thing, as you're learning within medical school, as you all may know, is that your vocabulary increases a lot. And it is important that you keep on learning this language, because if you don't learn the language, then you cannot communicate what you're saying to the people who may be listening to you, but as well as to the rest of the people in the medical fraternity. So you have to accept that that is how it is, because you cannot stick with whatever limited vocabulary you may have had before and then hope to be able to pass. People would think, even when you're saying the thing, but in a different language, which is not medical language, they may think you don't know what it is that you are doing. And of course, for newcomers, there's always different experiences, like getting into the cadaver room and seeing bodies for the first time, or for getting onto the ward and then people see so much blood, and sometimes it's a little shocking for some people, but for us, we always take them as different learning environments, or even being in the pathology room or having to do postmortems. If you're on the ward, sometimes it's just difficult patient situations. Yesterday, I walked into a room just to check on a patient as a friend, only for the patient to start fitting with a room full of people visiting. I had to maintain my calm and position the patient as appropriately, without getting into a panic, just like everyone else was in the room. So having to maintain your cool even when things are rather difficult, you're in the accidents and emergency room, but somehow you have to be able to not faint with the patients who are coming in with whatever kind of usually it is accidents, with whatever kind of body trauma that they may have experienced, but just figuring out how you can fix these people in the quickest time possible and ensure that you maintain their lives. So now we talk about the grading. I've already talked about medical school being an art and you learning a skill. When it gets to the grading, it is competency-based, and I think you already know this. Medical school in 2003, I think we moved away from a lot of lecture-based kind of teaching and moved more into competency-based learning. And for all of you who are here now, you found that the teaching system is very different, with more participation from the student rather than the teacher. The teachers only mainly serving a role as tutors and people who are guiding you into what it is you're supposed to be learning. There's always support for everyone to pass. And that's what sometimes students fail to appreciate in medical school, because our assumption is that for everyone who has come to the medical school, our expectation is that if you're able to go through it, we expect you to become a doctor or a nurse or a pharmacist or whatever it is your other profession may be. And we, as teachers, are always willing to support that person because we know that the system has put in place all the things that you may require to help you, get to that end goal. However, even with the system set up as it is, we all still know that the bell-shaped curve usually still will take its toll, that some people may not pass. The majority will, but some may not pass. Some may actually fail. Some may actually drop off during the course. As you may all be aware, if I told you in the 4th or 5th year, of your colleagues whom you entered with in year 1, but are no more in your class. Some may have had to rejoin, but in a lower grade. At the end of it all, the issue is not to maybe mock or laugh at these people who may have challenges along the way, but I think for one to just be cognizant that, things happen in life, but for you as you're planning for your own journey, you want to sail through without any detours along the way and finish in the time that the course has been allocated. Learning in medical school is collaborative. It's not competitive. It doesn't help you to know something without you sharing that knowledge with other people. And sometimes this is a very big challenge for many students because they always feel like, oh, I needed to be the best. I need to be the best. But when you do that, you can actually fail sometimes. If you read in isolation and do not discuss with other colleagues, sometimes you may be outspotted for something which everyone seems to know about and you don't. And that will not be very good for you. So study groups, very key in ensuring that you learn all this vast knowledge, because you as a single person may not be able to learn everything by yourself. So the other thing is, in medical school, we expect you to be grown up. First years usually may have a challenge with that. Many of them, especially if they've been in boarding school or if they've been coming from their protected homes, this is the first time they're actually living on their own, and they need to learn how to schedule themselves, be where they're supposed to be at the right time. And for some people, without anyone ringing a bell, this becomes a challenge, and yet they are expected to be in control of their lives and their activities. So I talked about having social relations in the beginning, and these sometimes become very important if you hook up with like-minded people who are following the school curriculum. You remind each other of what is supposed to be happening and where you're supposed to be at a particular time, so that you're not left out and fail to miss exams. I've had students in my office who said, oh, I didn't know the exam was taking place, or that they changed the timing of the exam. And for me, I came in the afternoon, while the last time I had been in medical school, the time that had been put on the notice board was morning. And they're like, don't you have friends who can, ask where are you, or let's have the last minute discussion on this thing. So don't isolate yourself, especially if you know you're poor at planning. Keep with the group. And of course, as I've mentioned, there's always different types of support from your teachers, the deans, heads of departments, and the peers that I've just mentioned. When you're in your first year, I believe you had the white coat ceremony. Nwamanya, am I right?
Yes, please. We had our white coat ceremony, but not everyone, the COVID era, a number of years have failed to have it in Makerere, but I don't know about other universities.
Right. Right. So the white coat ceremony is also a time where you decide to make your social contract with the medical school education, or the education you've chosen to take on for yourself, so that you totally commit to what it is that you decided to learn. I know, though, that some people come to medical school because it wasn't their choice, that it was because their parents said so, or that because they got the grades, but they don't have it at heart for them to pursue this course. And that's why we have the white coat ceremony, because when you join medical school, you still always have, I think, a period of about 3 weeks to change your mind, should you feel like this is not where you want to be. And you'd rather be somewhere else. So when you commit, then you have to commit to service and learning. Student is a 60-hour-a-week job. So basically, you kind of have no free time. It's just that you have to schedule that time appropriately. And I'll say what I mean by that in the next few slides. Issues of finances usually becomes a problem. Increasingly, we are having many people coming in with on non-government scholarship, and some may be self-paying, some are depending on their parents, and sometimes people have issues on how to find fees. So it is a factor that one needs to think through carefully, even before they join, unless a calamity happens along the way, on how those monies are going to be paid. It is also a challenge in how to manage money. We've had stories of students who have been given money to pay their fees, but instead take it to Wandegea and do sports betting, or they decide to have parties or go out. This doesn't only happen to medical students, but it happens to a couple of students on the university as a whole. So the issue of how you handle your finances to fit within what, your meals, your accommodation, how you get about is an issue that you can't ignore, but plan for appropriately. And then, of course, there's the stress of medical school. It is so busy. That one I will not say it is not. It is a fact that it is a busy place. So you need to know how to create time to self-care. Though those times are usually limited. So the times you may be able to hang out with your friends at the beach to relax should be created, but it should be limited, because otherwise, if it is every weekend, then your academics are going to suffer. You can't go out and have drinks every evening or hang out every evening. When will you read your books? Though I'm also saying that you should create, maybe it is once a week or once in 2 weeks when you can go, you know, I don't know where you guys go these days. Where do you go? Where do you go for outings? If it's not the beach.
In Kafunda.
Prof, we have a number of places at the moment, but just like how we know, we are not all purely non-alcoholic students, so most of us go to the bars, the near ones around here in Kampala, and I'm sure even across the country, or as soon as more across that side.
Yeah.
But the beach is no longer a big deal anymore.
It's not one of the things you do. Okay, so so even here is not to go to the beach all the time. I used to go to Angenois, and the beach is once in because that was like a religious, you know, social gathering. But yes, go to the bar, but drink the alcohol in moderation, and it should not be every day of the week. Neither should you be binging every weekend, because that also has implications on your finances. It's important for you to navigate relationships. Sometimes it's difficult for you to navigate relationships with your peers, with your teachers. For your teachers, I can only tell you, you should only respect them, because it doesn't earn you anything. Being rude to your teachers or looking down upon them and things like that, because they're here to teach you, to give you knowledge. So a person who teaches you knowledge should be someone you respect. So the most common way students fail to make a smooth transition to medical school, that's from year 1 to year 5, is number 1, failure to study enough and every day. As a medical student, if you're spending time in your room the whole day and you have not studied anything, even if for an hour, even if it's on the weekend, then there's something wrong. If you're missing class or missing school for extended periods and say, you know what, oh, I've gotten a trip, I've gone to, I don't know, Mombasa, or I don't know, but some people do all these kind of things. Or I've gotten a HAO, I have gone out of medical school for a full week or 2 weeks, you're going to be in trouble. We already talked about being disillusioned. And that disillusionment of not being the top in class, if you fail to overcome it, seek help from counselors, seek help from people to help you review the world with a different eye, to appreciate where you are and where you would like to be going in the future. It is important for you to plan your days well with adequate studying. You should be having your meals. If you don't have meals, you're going to faint on the ward because of hypoglycemia. You should, we've already talked about the social interactions, and it is important that you also sleep. I'll talk about sleep in a bit. You shouldn't be isolating yourselves from peers and counselors. I already talked about, you know, staying in your rooms instead of attending class, and seeking help when you find that you're struggling. And that struggling may be because of academics, but it could also be because of personal issues. Sometimes people get family issues, which really get into their way, and not that they may not be academically equipped to continue with the course. So Tips for adequate navigation. Right now, you guys mostly use computers. So if you can have access to one, greatly helps with your reading and revising. If you need books, you get the books from the library or online. And it is important for you to schedule at least an hour a day for every hour of class in order for you to keep up to pace with what you're supposed to be studying. If you need, use a calendar, to schedule what it is you're going to study, which day of the week. And when you are learning, time yourself. Don't sit on a book and read for 3 hours. Really, your brain can take in all that information. But study maybe for about an hour and then a period of rest before you can be able to resume. And as you do that, as you're reading, I use studying skills like this one, the SQR3 method, where if you have a topic that you're going to study the next day, just survey through whatever it is that is going to be discussed in class. In class, be active, ask questions during the lectures, and read to make sure all questions are answered to your satisfaction. You can recite your important points, as you're revising, to ensure that you've actually gotten this idea very well. And then you can review whatever it is you studied before to see if you still can remember it. And this comes out very well whenever it is that you then are able to have discussions. It's not very good for people to attend discussions when they have not read. So it's usually better that you have read, and then people, the more you repeat stuff, the more that the information will get into your brain. When you go to class, be present. Some people, especially now with online classes, people log on and then they're not there. You're wasting your time, and you're cheating yourself, because it doesn't make sense for you to log on and you're not actually there. But even when you're physically present, please don't be on your phones or being distracted by other things, because that's the time for you to put in something, but then you find yourself being taken up by WhatsApp, and I don't know what else it is that videos, people, TikTok and stuff like that. So do your TikTok when you're in your break, but in class, be present, okay? Ask questions if it's not clear. Sometimes the lectures are recorded, so sometimes you can be able to listen back. However, if you do not attend class, then you miss the opportunity for asking those questions. And sometimes if you're listening to stuff, it's difficult for you to stay actively engaged while at the same time you're listening to other things. And if you're not in class, of course, you also miss the social benefits, which sometimes are important in aiding your own learning when you're in a group of people. So I'd say that I'll talk about sleep. It is very important for you to sleep at least 8 hours every day. There is no point of you reading late into the night, having it doesn't aid learning. You are going to have poor attention, and you're going to be fatigued for much of the day. And when you're fatigued, you cannot attention. So you always have to ensure you have enough sleep so that your brain is fresh enough to take in new stuff. New stuff. And there's no person who doesn't need 8 hours of sleep. Usually, don't try to take coffee to keep alert even afternoon. Otherwise, you become a coffee addict. And don't go into any drugs that should enhance your learning. Sometimes medical students fall into the trap of having to use amphetamines so that they can stay alert and focused on reading. You just end up as a druggie. In the long run, it doesn't help you And even after, when you finish, please don't do drugs. Medical students, medical personnel are the worst at abusing drugs because of your easy access to some of these medications in terms of professions. You should make friends and work to maintain those social relationships. I cannot stress this enough on how important it is that you should have these friends that walk with you the path as you navigate medical school. The friends you have in medical schools know what it is you're going through, and it is important to maintain that circle around you. However, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have other friends outside the ones of medical school. It's important to interact with other people so that you don't end up in a cocoon, but are aware of other things that are happening elsewhere. Okay, so I end with this one. I'm sorry for the many headlines that just happened to be on this February 9th, 2021 newspaper. You guys were striking for us putting online lectures. Now you're the ones who want them the most. So do not go on strike in medical school, even as medical doctors. It's not helpful. You swore to serve, please serve. Do not have the mentality of being antagonistic all the time, but maybe rather discuss and see how you overcome challenges. I'm not saying there are no problems, but discuss how you overcome those challenges. Don't you feel like this is ironical that you were the ones who are protesting against online lectures and now you're the ones who like them the most? Interesting. Unfortunately, there are other headlines on this. Like Pope Francis says homosexuality is not a crime. That's not me. Suck me if you want. Muhoozi challenges Museveni. I'm not sure if he said that. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. We'll give it back to you, Nwamanya, to lead the next part session.
Thank you very much, Professor Noeline, for your wonderful presentation. I'm very sure all of us have learned a lot and have actually picked a lot of key points to, among which I can give a small summary, which was don't read in isolation because you will actually be isolated by the exam itself. Then after a grown up, then have a sleep for around 8 hours, at least 8 hours. We all need the sleep, and you gave us a wonderful mnemonic of SQR3. Then another last thing was attend discussions and lectures, but at least when you have data, don't be adatic, because that's the new term we use nowadays in school, like being adatic. So I'm very sure there are very many other points that everyone has picked, and I am very sure that each and everyone here has at least something to say or wishes to say something. I'm going to allow questions right now. So in case anyone has a burning question, you can raise up your hand and I will choose you. But in the meantime, as you work up your question, Doctor, let me first ask you one question. After me summarizing all those, I have to be a good student. I should actually spend some time and I move out. I should sleep for 8 hours. I should attend all wards and I should attend all lectures. Doctor, I think that according to me, it is purely theoretical and we cannot actually have all that. And we are trying to, because that's where we are mainly struggling in. And how best could a real student in the ideal setting whereby have to be on ward or have to be on ward by 9 and I will leave at ideally at 5, then I have to again read for at least an hour per day, then I have to get 8 hours of sleep, and still I have to at least have my own life, because maybe I'm a mature entrant and I'm paying my own tuition, so at least still I have to work. We're trying to see how is all that possible and how can we have all that at once and still be the good students of medical school.
Okay, so in trying, remember, I said medical school is, give me a minute, there's sun coming into my face. Let me first arrange it. So as for people, medical school is a full-time job. To really say that someone can be in medical school and do other things, that is a disservice to yourself. Because if you cannot get time off to do this as a full-time course, if your employers cannot allow for you to continue working and they pay you without, having to fit it in, it becomes, it's very stressing. And that's why you find people are doing all kinds of things. Now we've quoted a couple of medical students who, because they cannot be present all the time in class and their employers need them at work, they end up missing, they get mercenaries to sit the exams. Unfortunately, if we catch you, we're just going to chase you out of here. You will not complete that course. So this means that when you're planning to come to medical school, you need to have done proper planning. You need to have done proper planning to allow for all this to happen. Maybe if you so can, it can only be maybe a weekend activity, and that is if you happen not to be on duty or your firm is not on call, or they are flexible enough to take you on. Sometimes you can't have both sides of things and hope to go through. So proper planning, and then knowing what it is that you have decided to study, because if you don't commit the much time that is needed for medical school, unfortunately, it catches up with you. For me, I'm telling you how to navigate the ideal way. There may be, if you're a full-time mom, and then you hope that you'll be the ones who is dropping the children in school, you're going to be the one who is picking them, that's still not possible. You need to organize yourself otherwise. You need to find someone else to help you pick or drop those children before you time student. It becomes difficult for you in the course.
Thank you very much. At least you have cleared the air that